All right, first of all, thank you guys. This was overwhelming. When we first talked about doing this class, we figured we'd get 6 to 10 parents. So we kept getting signups, and I'm sure more will come in. So thank you guys. You guys are showing a huge step in the development of your child. And one thing we think of, we don't really think of at 3 years old, but we're starting to think of now more as a nation, what's my child going to be when they grow up? So that's basically kind of what STEAM is centered around. So STEAM very easily stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. So basically what happened was the National Science Foundation years ago kind of looked around and said, hey, we're not getting a lot of Americans to fulfill these jobs we have. We have all kinds of jobs in science, technology. We're having people from other countries coming in. And we're falling behind as a nation, so what we need to do is to increase our pool here in this country of our children that can fulfill these in future generations. And that's kind of where the STEAM initiative got its birthplace. Around 2006, government caught on and said, hey, this is kind of a good idea. Let's start making some programs of our own. And so before we know it, we've got all these initiatives, and basically, we got it all condensed in here to STEAM. So come on in. I'm going to put these out in the middle of the table if anybody didn't get one of these. Our handouts for the night here. Blue one's just a schedule, and then the other one is our handout that we'll be going over. So when the National Science Foundation first started, it was called SMET. So science, mathematics, engineering, and technology. Until one brilliant scientist said, you know, STEM sounds a lot better than SMET. So let's change it. So it became science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And then about 2 years ago, someone said, we're missing something in STEM. We're missing art and design, which is one of the big parts of science technology. So let's call it STEAM. So we have an A. Who knows, next year there might be a Y added, or a Z, or something. But right now we're going to call it STEAM, and that's what we're going to focus on. So the class tonight is basically to kind of touch base with you guys and let you know you can take what we're learning in the class and you can do it at home and keep that learning growing. We never want to see that learning stop. So tonight, please feel free to ask questions. Feel free to make comments. Feel free to disagree. That's part of the whole learning process. So if there's something you say, I don't think that would really work, let's discuss it because we might be enlightened together on it. So definitely feel free to do that. So on your first page of your handout, you have the very definition of what STEAM is. And we'll flip that page over and we'll look at what are the benefits of STEAM. Why is it important to have in the class? We are always taught the 3 R's. That's what America was based on. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Something that we were taught, our parents were taught, our grandparents were taught. But what about all the other things that falls in between? So as a nation, yes, we need to work on our literacy. That is true. And yes, we need to learn our writing, you know, especially in a digital age where we do a lot of textings and things like that. Writing's still important. What about the science? What about the engineering? So STEAM kind of comes in and fills those gaps. Now you're lucky that you have children here at the Goddard School because we've been teaching a lot of this all along. It's part of the Goddard program. What we want to do is emphasize it so we can do it both here at school and at home. So that's what we're going to do. The first bullet point under there is STEAM teaches how all things are related to each other in school and life. We want to promote global thinking with STEAM. We don't want to think about the problem that's in front of us. We want to think about how the problem affects our friends, our family, the world around us. Global thinking. STEAM reaches more learners because it's based on natural learning style. All of us in here were raised on teaching for the test. We have to pass that big exam. That's just the way it is in school. That's how we determine if children are learning. The problem is when you teach for the test, the children only learn things for the test. And once the test is over, a lot of it's forgotten. You guys can think back to your own education about how much has been forgotten that you've done. You probably did great on those tests and you don't remember half of it nowadays. What STEAM wants to do is teach the process over the product. So they would much rather see you do a great job building a telescope out of a toilet paper tube that doesn't work than meticulously working on questions on a paper to get a grade that you'll forget later on. So it's done through the process over the product. STEAM evolves to fit today's learning and needs. So if something new arises in our community, globally, locally, STEAM can change instantly to attack that problem. So how can we have our young learners doing things to fix that problem, thinking globally? STEAM can work at any program, anywhere. It's easy. It really is easy. You can do it at home. You could do it if your child visits you at work. You could do it on the weekend at the park. A lot of these things that you're going to learn tonight, you could do anywhere at any time. Oh, we have a chair here. We need more chairs? There you go. Pass these around, move tables, throw things out of the way, whatever you want to do. Thank you. There you go. We'll get out some nap mats.
I'll make it work.
Yes. There you go. Thank you guys so much for coming. All right, so let's skip down to STEAM as globally oriented. That's kind of what we talked about before. So what does that mean to think globally? So let's go to the math problems that we're familiar with when we went to school. Johnny has 8 apples, Mikey has 12 apples. How many apples does Mikey have to eat to have the same amount as Johnny? So word problems, we're used to those. Globally thinking about a situation is Johnny owns an apple orchard that's being destroyed by pest flies. How can we stop this problem? Whoa, so now we're out of the box here. It's no longer a simple math problem. How do we stop that? So you can start going through the steps of it. You start using that global thinking, that logical thinking, things like science. Let's see. We know that pest flies don't do well with pesticides, but they can't get through nets because they're too big. So maybe we can use a net. But how are we going to do that? Let's use technology. Let's start taking pictures of the orchard. See if we can stretch it a certain way. Let's see if we can make it a certain way to where it can fit. So that's global thinking. How can we engineer it? How can we make it so that it's lightweight, so that it won't destroy the trees within the orchard? And how can we use art to make a design so it doesn't take away from the landscape, that it's beautiful and still functional? And of course, mathematics. How much is it going to cost? How are we going to build it? How much materials we're going to need? So we use STEAM to solve a global problem. Now, Johnny Apple's orchard is saved, and so is our friend that's over in India who has an apple orchard. It's global thinking, and we start at a very young age. And also, to follow that up, STEAM promotes forward thinking. So as we talked about, it's not just a problem in front of us, but a problem that could occur in 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line. Our children can start thinking right now. You say, how can that happen at 3 years old? So let me give you an example. Last year we had a Tinker Toy project here at school. Kind of asked the kids, what should we do? And they didn't know. Let's build a tower. So I said, okay, what kind of tower? No, I don't want to build a tower. Let's build a box. Okay, let's build a box. What kind of box? Let's build a box to put animals in. Okay, what kind of animals are you going to put in the box? We could put a duck in the box. We have a stuffed duck. Ah, that's a good one. We could put a duck in the box. A lot of ducks, they get oil on them when there's oil spills and they need to be clean. So what can we do? We could put brushes on the box. We could put brushes on the box, that's right. So now there's brushes on the box, there's a duck in the box. The brushes clean the duck. What if we turned a knob that could clean the duck? What if we don't have to sit there and scrub with oil all day? We could wash a duck in 5-10 minutes. Then we could save all these animals. Forward thinking from the mind of a 3-year-old. It's fantastic, it's amazing. Some of you have 6-month-olds, some of you have year-olds, some of you have 7-year-olds. You can take it and turn it into whatever you want by either making it down to their level or raising it up to the next. So that's up to you, and you're going to learn a little bit about that tonight. So there are 2 types of learning. There's academic learning, which we're all used to, that's what we grew up with, and there's intellectual learning. So academic learning is kind of teaching for the test, memorizing things. I know what this picture is, I know what this letter is, I know what this sound is. Nothing wrong with that. It's fantastic. Counting, reciting, practicing. What STEAM does is try to make you think intellectually, which enhances the academic part. So reasoning. So yeah, why are those 2 pictures together? I don't understand. I can see they're together, but why do they make sense? Predicting. So I know this came first and this came second, so what comes third? That's not memorizing, that's using your intellect to predict. Problem solving, we just talked about that with the duck example. And hypothesizing, which is a huge one, especially for science. So what would happen if we did this? So it's all part of the STEAM thinking. Now I know I'm going through this fast. Does anybody have any questions or comments so far? Does anybody work in the science field first? Let me say that. Anybody in here? And all excellent. Good. So I can say whatever I want. Didn't know. So I am a geek, and I know that's not surprising anybody here. I'm a geek. Obviously didn't grow up a natural athlete. I spent most of my time loving science. That was one of the things that I shared with my father, and we just had a lot of fun doing. So it's really, really refreshing to me to see that this is getting pushed. And when I say pushed, I don't mean it in a harsh way. I mean it's telling teachers, think differently when you teach your kids. Parents, think differently. If you do that, you're going to have your children ready to snag one of those jobs that's out there for them to take, where they not only are going to earn a nice paycheck, because let's be honest, all these things lead to very nice pay, but they're going to be helping the world make it a better place, and that's important. Let's look at the importance of forward thinking. Students think outside the box through continued questioning. If I can have you guys take one thing away tonight, ask questions. As many as you can. Think of 50 questions you want to ask. And don't stop asking until your child just gets tired and quits. So, most of you have gone to the point where your child will ask you a question. So this is happening. Why? Well, why? Well, we're going to do the why. Why is it why? They're doing to you what you need to be doing to them. So, let's say you're using Legos and you build a tower and the tower fell over. Oh, they're sad. Why did your tower fall over? Because I built it and it fell. Well, why? Well, because I built it too tall. Well, why was it too tall? Because I put too many pieces on top and it got heavy and it fell. Well, have you ever seen this tower? Phew. Bring in technology. Here's the iPad. Here's the Eiffel Tower. What's different about this tower? Well, the bottom of it, it's a lot bigger than the top of it. Ah, exactly. Let's make the bottom bigger to your tower. Now they're starting to think outside the box. And they're going to start asking you a question. Where's that tower at? Well, that tower's in France. It gets flipped back over on you. And the learning process just keeps going and going and going. Students use critical thinking to find solutions to problems. We've discussed that. Process becomes more important than the product as well. It's all about them doing it more than achieving it. The achievement will come. Achievement comes through practice. We want them to try. So let's say you're going to do an experiment of, you're going to make a volcano, a simple volcano out of vinegar and baking soda. And for whatever reason, you pour the vinegar in and just nothing happens. Oh, what a bummer. But you guys understand that they got the process down. Let's do it again. And it worked this time. What did we do differently? You start asking those questions. Well, this time you didn't put in as much baking soda, Dad, and that's why it worked this time. All right, so now they're starting to think, they're starting to process that. Because innovations occur both by planning and happy accidents. So, happy accidents are funny. That's something I took. My dad was a big Bob Ross fan and didn't paint. My dad didn't paint, but he liked to go on PBS every Saturday and watch Bob Ross paint. And every once in a while, as great as he was, he would mess up and put a stroke somewhere wrong. And he would say, that's okay. That's not a mistake. It's just a happy accident. And of course, he would turn into a beautiful tree or a mountain or something out of that. Happy accidents are okay. It's not about getting to the conclusion. It's about the process of getting to the conclusion. And that's the fun part. So, here's the big thing. How do we bring STEAM into the home? What are some of the problems, and please feel free to yell them out, what are some of the problems you have with teaching your child at home?
They don't want to listen. Sorry.
They don't want to listen. Very good.
Not gonna listen.
Focusing.
Focusing.
Getting them to focus.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is a problem for teachers as well. So we have to find a lot of that. We're going to have a lot of things in common here. How about time? Time one, definitely. Even expense. I hear a lot of parents say that expense. So what I'm going to do tonight is give you guys some stuff to take home that's not time consuming, that's not expensive, and that will hopefully keep their focus. So that'll be some fun things. We talked about continuing to ask questions and looking for learning in everyday activities. So science and technology, which are the first two we're focusing on in this class tonight, doesn't have to be something drawn out where you have all this stuff in beakers set up and you got things bubbling and boiling. You're putting chemicals in and all that. Science could be like, hey, there's a rock. Look at that one. That one's orange and all the rest are brown. Let's pick it up. They pick up the rock and they look at it. You know what? I don't know what kind of rock this is. Let's see if we can go on the internet really fast and see what kind it is. Bring up a geology site on there. Identify the rock. You know what's going to happen? They're going to carry that rock with them everywhere because it means something to them. Cost you nothing, but you taught them science right there at home. So it's very easy to do. And provide materials that will encourage exploration. This is one of my favorite things, and I think I have this later on in the presentation, but I want to talk about it now. We all get those Amazon boxes that are full of packing peanuts. They are annoying. So you open it up, they fly everywhere, you gotta vacuum up, sweep them up. But to a child, that's science. That's science. Put them in a big box, let them feel them, let them squish them. Do you know that packing peanuts made with starch, you can actually wet them and stick them together and build things out of them? You can soak them in water and they'll dissolve and disappear. Science, right there at your fingertips. So provide materials for your children, and they will definitely use them. So let's get to technology. Let's get to the one controversial one on this whole list. No one ever argues about more science or engineering or art or mathematics, but when you bring up technology, there's either parents that are really for it, really against it. I like to go somewhere in between. So let's talk about the importance of technology by going through the pros and the cons. Pros. Students stay up to date with changing technology. So think about when you were back in grade school. Things happened like cell phones, let's say, for instance. Cell phones started out really slow. They were kind of the same. There was the Nokia 8261 that looked like a peanut everybody had for years. And then all of a sudden the boom happened. And they started coming out fast. And they started getting smartphones. And smartphones could update quickly. And now Google announced the Aria phone, which is coming out, where you can actually change features on your phone by sliding them out, putting a new camera on, sliding the screen on, putting a new camera on, sliding the microphone out, putting a new one on. You may never have to buy a cell phone again. You'll just buy the individual parts. Look at how far we've come. Students can stay up to date with that. And by the time they get to that age where they're in high school and going into college, they're going to know everything they need to know to stay competitive in the work world. The right programs can enhance a child's learning through visual and audible ideas and examples. And I highlight right there, the right programs. Putting a child on a computer to watch Frozen is easy to do, okay? It's entertaining, your child wants to do it, you have stuff to do. There's definitely no argument about that, definitely. Putting a child on something like PBS Kids, or something that's been approved by that, now they're starting to learn. They're starting to use not only their ability to maneuver around a computer, they're learning things also through the program. So that can be a great thing, a great tool for them. Technology provides a wealth of information instantly. I always tell my wife, I cannot imagine the term papers I could have wrote if I had the technology today. Do you guys remember going to the library, trying to find the book? Yes. Yeah, encyclopedias, yes. I remember going to the library and waiting to get in till it opened and going in and the book was checked out. Who's got the book? Somebody's got the book to have it checked out for the next week. Trying to go back and forth. Now I can just pull out my phone and I have every single information I want there. Right at my fingertips. I can start writing, I can start creating things automatically. Your child's going to use technology like this in school. It's just going to be part of their everyday learning. Students stay competitive with the rest of the world. So even though you guys may not like technology or not like a lot of technology, guess what?
It's happening.
It's happening, exactly. The rest of the world does. In countries like China, India, Japan, Middle East, they're teaching it in their classrooms. Can you guys remember when you were back in 4th grade and you got to finally touch a computer? And you remember what it looked like? They brought out those 3 3/4 floppies, yes, and they gave it to you. You played Oregon Trail or Math Munchers on them, and that was the highlight. Kids nowadays in 4th grade are learning code to write software. It's amazing to where they've gotten nowadays. So we want our children to stay competitive in that. And that's something you guys can help at home by using technology in a responsible and fun way to teach your children. Now with pros, there are also cons with technology, so let's not ignore them. Let's, confront them. Too much screen time leads to a sedentary lifestyle. It's fact. There's a fact. There's no arguing about that. If you set a child in front of the TV for 3 or 4 hours a day, that is where they're going to want to be, and that's where they're going to want to stay, because that's what they're used to. It's kind of how a lot of us grew up in there. So let's, before you examine your child's life, think about your own life. First, think about how much you sit, especially if you have an office job. Might be all day. So how does that affect you both physically? How does it affect you mentally? It's hard. I decided this year I'm terrible with resolutions. I decided this year I said I'm going to do one thing healthy and I'm going to use technology to do it. And I bought a fitness band that tells me when to get up and move by giving us a little red line. That little red line flashes all day long. It is annoying. It's annoying. But every time it flashes, I try to get up, I try to move around. It makes me conscious of the kind of life that I was leading up to this point. Same thing with your child. You want them to get out. You want them to be active. You want them to stay at a healthy weight. You want them to stay in a healthy mind frame. So it's all within moderation. Technology can be used as a babysitter, taking the focus out of other types of learning. So if your child's sitting and watching TV or on the pad, they're not outside looking at bugs. They're not outside exploring rocks. They're not outside building forts, part of engineering. They're not doing those type of things. So again, within moderation, you have to limit the amount of time. Technology can limit real-world exploration, and that kind of goes hand in hand with that as well. Let me tell you, technology will never replace real-world exploration. It never will. I grew up wanting to go to Japan. So I would go online, and I would look things up, and I would try to learn the language, and I'd watch anime, and I would do everything that was Japanese. And when I was in my mid-20s, I got to go, and none of that I learned mattered. Because I got to see it for real. I got to see the dragons emblazoned on the temple. And I got to see real cherry blossom trees that were blowing, and it was amazing. The real world will never replace technology. So you have to use technology to enhance the real world instead of replacing it. Any questions or comments as I'm going through this fast? I know an hour is actually a short amount of time to talk about science, so we're trying to keep this going. So technology as a tool. TVs, phones, tablets, and computers are meant to enhance real-world learning, not replace it, what we talked about. Tech such as video cameras, camera phones can be used to document experiments and exploration at home. So have you guys ever thought about that? Most of us have a digital camera. This is one that's actually designed for 3-year-olds that we have in the class. It can be dropped, it can be thrown, nothing's going to happen to it. Battery life is about 3 minutes, so that's the problem with it. But it can actually be used as a tool. So we go outside and, oh my goodness, look at this lizard on the wall. It is huge. We can't touch it. We don't know what it is. We can take our camera, we can take a picture of it. Now we've used technology to document something that they may look at 1,000 times because that's something they got to experience, not only in nature, but also with mom or dad. So it's going to be fun for them. So that's what we got to think about. You got a video camera at home, you're about to do an experiment, set it up. Set it up. People make millions of hits on YouTube doing this kind of thing, usually when they go wrong, but, but when they go right too, it's a lot of fun. And now you have a documentation of you and your child doing something for their learning together, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. All right. Let's talk about internet interaction. The internet can be a very scary place. There's lots of bad stuff out there. There's lots of adult content, there's lots of viruses, lots of malware. So how do you have your child live in an internet world without being affected by all that stuff? So find something your child is interested in and look up more facts about it together. So something like that could be, little Johnny likes race cars. Okay, well, how do race cars move? Let's look at that up together. Have them sit in your lap, sit next to you, let them go through that. You know what's good and bad for the most part. You can go through that. But make sure, and I think I have this on one of these too coming up, but make sure you got your filters on. You're going to safe sites that are trusted. Lots of places out there like NetNanny and things like that that'll tell you good sites to go on. Just for your own thing, a handful out there that we use all the time in class, PBS Kids, Starfall, things like that. They've already been approved by many, many parents to be safe. Here's a fun one to use the internet for. Contact relatives or acquaintances in other countries or even other cities, you can put on there, to see how life is progressing where they live. So, we're in Arizona in the summer. It is hot. I lived in Australia. In the summer, it is freezing. Their seasons are changed. How much fun is it to get on Skype, and there's grandma and grandpa, and there's uncle on there, and they're bundled up while you're in your tank top. How's the weather there? Actually, it's freezing. It's, you know, it's cold. It's just, that's that kind of global thinking where you can reach out. When they get into grade school, they're going to do a lot of that. And hopefully they'll be in a class that has a pen pal class. They're a lot of fun. Some of the time I spent in Japan was in a classroom with my friend, and they had a satellite class that was in Norway, I believe. And basically they would go on, didn't understand what each other was saying on there, but they would say, hi, hi, different looking face than mine. What are you doing over there? You know, that type of thing. My friend Patrick, who was teaching the class at the time, was doing Japanese to English, English to Japanese, so he was kind of able to interpret a little bit through English in there. But it was just a fun experience. It takes this little world we live in and makes it huge. And at the same time, it takes this huge world we don't understand and brings it into perspective for a young learner. So that's one of the things very important about technology. And again, you can use educational programs to reinforce math, science, music, and other areas of study as well. Some of those websites that we mentioned. Okay, so it's okay to think outside the limits, but live within them. So limits are okay. Limits are necessary. Does anybody know the amount of time a child under 2 should have for screen time, which is anything tablet, TV, computers? Anybody know?
Per day.
0. Perfect. Perfect. 0. Developmentally, studies have shown that their ability to see 3D images and interpret them from a 2D image is not developed before the age of 2. So it actually can kind of mess with development at that age. I'm guilty of it. I've got an 8-month-old, nephew, and sometimes I'll be holding him and we'll walk by the TV and I'll stop and look at something and he's looking and you can see that he sees images, but it's all blurry and fuzzy to him. He has no idea what's going on, so he's not ready for that at that age. But when we get to the age of 2, now we can start bringing it in. So, does anybody know? Well, I mean, it's right there in front of you. How much time a 2-year-old should have? Over 2. 1 to 2 hours a day collectively. That's not a time period, sitting down for 2 hours. That's collectively. Doesn't seem like a lot of time. 1 to 2 hours, it really doesn't. I will tell you here at this school, we give them 15 minutes of screen time a day. So you can use that in your own home, thinking, okay, that's already taken out of the equation, there's only 45 minutes left, or there's an hour and a half left for my child. The reason why is, not only does it stop with that sedentary lifestyle, but it also lets them take their mind off of something like saying watching, let's say they're watching Caillou on there, and they can take a break from that. Let's go to read a book. They read a book for 30, 45 minutes. You can come back, have another 15 minutes on the computer. So you can break it up like that without making it one big chunk that's actually going to take away from, it's going to keep their attention on the TV, but take their attention away from the other things they need to be studying and growing and developing. Be present for screen time, which is hard. You guys work all day, you have to get home, you have to make dinner, you have things and chores you have to do at home. It's really hard to do that. As much as you possibly can, be present. And the reason why is you can start asking questions. Let's say you're watching a cartoon on TV and one of the characters pushes one of the other characters and they fall down. All right? It might be a funny thing, there might be a little sound effect or something like that. There's an opportunity for a question. Why did they do that? Why did he push him down? Well, he pushed him down because he wasn't looking and he thought it would be funny and he pushed him down. But look at that character's face. He doesn't think it's funny. He looks sad. Yeah, he does look sad. That probably wasn't funny, was it? Learning opportunity. Learning opportunity right there that would have otherwise passed you by. So as much as you can, be present for screen time. It's also a way to keep it safe. Just to back that up, make sure necessary filters are turned on your devices to keep your learner from discovering off-limits website and downloading viruses. That's a big thing. They can do that without even knowing. Fortunately, we have locks on our computer here, so that can't happen. But even when they're on, they'll find a way to get into certain things that aren't harmful for the computer, but it's just like, how did you get to this part where it turned my screen upside down? How did you figure that out? So, yeah, so we have to sit down and do that. So make sure your filters are on and make sure you have them under supervision. And again, a simple rule, everything in moderation. If it feels like they've had too much TV time, they probably had too much TV time. Feels like they've been on their pad too long, their tablet, they probably have been. So everything in moderation. Do we have any questions about technology as far as teaching it in the home? It's a pretty self-explanatory one because you guys are, most of you, or probably everybody in here is already doing it at home in some capacity. It is a tool. Technology is a tool. And it can be entertainment, and it definitely is to us adults, but at this age, think of it as a tool. And a tool is something you use to teach a bigger lesson. And that's what we want to do with technology. So very good. Okay, any questions or comments? We're going to move on. So we're going to go through science. We're going to talk a little bit about science in the home, and then we're actually going to do a couple experiments. So we're going to get to the fun stuff that you can do at home. Why science? Science covers a variety of disciplines. Astronomy, astrophysics, biology, chemistry, geology, even into medicine, obviously. So there's lots of different areas of study that your child might be interested in. We use a word like astrophysics, and I can't even say it, astrophysics, excuse me, and then we think of the age of a child as 2 or 3. How is my 2-year-old going to be interested in astrophysics? You have to find a way to relate it to them. When I was a child, I went out into the yard with my father's binoculars. And my father and I, we didn't get to spend a lot of time together because he worked. Like, he loved his family, worked really hard, never would fault him for that. The time we spent together was precious. So I remember he got a new pair of binoculars, and I went out in the front yard, and I looked up at the moon, and you could just barely see the outline of the craters around the outside of the moon. And I ran inside, and I said, Dad, We saw the moon. I saw the moon. There was craters on the moon. It was great. My dad said, you know, binoculars don't work very well for that. What you need is a telescope. This is 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night. Dad, can you go buy me a telescope? I want to see that. So what my father did is he went inside and took a paper towel tube. He took the lenses out of an old pair of glasses and he glued them on each side. So there was a lens on each side. And he said, here's a telescope. So we went out in the front yard, and of course, when you put prescription lenses together, it's nothing but fuzzy lights in the sky. But to me as a child, my dad made me a telescope. Now I can look at the stars. And you know what? I got a real telescope that year for my birthday. It was beautiful. Used it all the time. Sat on the back porch. The one my father gave me sat on the shelf in the room. It was right there. It was a fun experience that I did with my father. He taught me a concept. Look at the stars. They're far away. And guess what? We can reach them one day. We really can. So at 2 years old, at 3 years old, at 4 years old, at a year old, take your child outside. Look up at the stars. Talk about them. Talk about how far away they are. Ask them if they'd ever like to fly up there sometime. It gets those wheels turning. It gets them starting to think about science. And it starts to be fun for them. Now we talked about keeping their attention. That's hard to do. They're only going to be interested in it if you're interested in it. So it can't be like, yep, there's a lot of stars up there. Yeah, all right, you ready to go? Show them the excitement. Wow, look at the size of that one. Do you see that star up there? Look at how it twinkles, and it's twinkling brighter than all the other stars. Wait a second, why is that one twinkling and that one's not? You know what, maybe that one's a planet. What do you think? Make it exciting. When they see the excitement in you, they're going to want to do it. And they're going to hold their attention on that because it's important to you and they can see that. They want to do it. Science also promotes critical thinking through questioning and experimentation. Think the scientific method. You guys remember that in school? We all taught the scientific method. Observe, make a hypothesis, test, examine the data afterwards, retest again. So that was the scientific method. You can also do that in experiments at home. Do an experiment. If it works, add something to it. If it didn't work, change something to make it work. And that's keeping them into the project. It's keeping their attention, and it's making something that's fun for them. Science through experimentation has greater chance of holding a child's attention because they can control it. Now, mixing something like chemicals together, you wouldn't want your child to do that. We're going to get a little bit into the safety about that. But ask them, what do you want me to do next? Well, I want you to pour that whole box of baking soda in and see what happens. Okay, take a few steps back and let's do it. And you try it. Now, they're in control. They made the choice for that. They're watching. They're engaged. It's part of their world at that moment. And they're getting interested in it. It's something that's going to carry on to the next stage, and the next stage, and the next stage, as long as you keep promoting it. So, science in the home. Relate science to a child's interest. We kind of talked a little bit with the race car one. But here's a question. How does Superman fly? Something simple like that. We've all seen Superman fly. I'm a big comic book fan. How does Superman fly? Well, he's an alien from another planet. Well, is that where it ends? Ask another question. Well, if he's here on Earth, how does he fly? Is he faster than a plane? Yeah, Superman's faster than a plane. How does a plane fly? Well, a plane's got those things on the sides that make it fly. Yeah, jet engines are fast, right? Does Superman have a jet engine? You know what? He's probably using something called propulsion. Have you ever heard propulsion before? Don't be afraid to use big words. Just remember, you got to explain them to the child. But they will remember them. One of my favorite stories in here is when a parent came in and said, do you know what word my child said last night? As a teacher, like, oh, man. All right, let me take a breath here. What word did your child say last night? My child said the word sarcophagus. And I said, well, yeah, we talked about it. We were talking about Egypt this week in our class. Yeah, sarcophagus is one of the things we talked about. Yeah, we're sitting at the dinner table, and we asked him what he learned, and he said, mummies live in a sarcophagus. And I said, yeah, that's right. That's what we taught in class. She's like, I didn't know he could say that kind of word. Your child is smarter than you think. They really are. And a lot of you think your children are brilliant. And they are. They are. But they're probably even smarter than you think. So don't be afraid to use big words like that. Propulsion, viscosity, buoyancy. Those words, and explain what they mean. Now your child has a word that he knows that most all the other 3-year-olds around him doesn't. It's already put him up a step. So you give them another step and another step by building on that. And you're using this very concept right here to prepare them for the world that's ahead of them. Look for household items that can be used in science projects. And we got some of those right here. So, the good old cornstarch. We know this cornstarch one. You mix a couple cups of cornstarch with a cup of water. It gets gooey. You can fill it up and you can squeeze it in your hand and it becomes like a rock. And then you let it go and it just melts out. It's a fun way to do a sensory object. You probably already have this in your cupboard. Soda. Whether or not you drink it, it's a great scientific tool. We're actually going to use this tonight. And we're going to do a science experiment with you. So this is one thing you might have around the house. The old teacher standby. Vinegar and baking soda. You can do so many fun things with this. Hang on to your handouts because there's experiments in the back. And when you guys go home tonight, I want you to grab one of these bags for each one family here. There's an experiment inside and there's instructions. So you guys have no excuse to not do science tomorrow night with your child. You can go home and do it. It's going to be right there for you. Baking soda and vinegar are part of that. So we're going to actually do an experiment with those. Food coloring. Very important. Food coloring can not only teach scientific ideas by mixing things together. Let's say you're making a volcano. Add a couple drops of red food coloring to it. Just enhances the learning method. Hey, that looks like lava now. All right? And you can also teach some art. So I think I have it in here. I don't want to jump ahead. Actually, no, it's on one of the experiments, so I can tell you that. So when you're doing a volcano and you put that little cup down and you pour your baking soda in it and you get ready to pour your vinegar in, stop for a second and say, how can I change this? Put a couple drops of red in the baking soda. Put a couple drops of yellow in the vinegar. Pour it in, it makes orange. Now you've taught them a science lesson and an art lesson at the same time. So you can make things together like that save time and increase the learning. Do the same experiment with different variables. It's something we talked about. Change the amount, change the quantity, change what you put in them, change the color. If you're doing something that works well, make it not work. Let's keep trying this until it doesn't work anymore. Has anybody done the Mentos and Coke experiment? Nobody in here has done the Mentos and Coke? Oh my goodness, I wish we could have done it in the class, but it's something you definitely have to do outside.
Yeah.
So Mentos and Coke, you take a 2-liter bottle of Coke. It has to be Coke or Diet Coke. And for whatever reason, no other brand works. I don't know what it is. I'll find out the secret from Coke one day. So what you have to do is you take a whole roll of Mentos, you put it in a paper tube, you take the top off, you drop the whole roll in, and you run as fast as you can. Because the Mentos makes a chemical reaction with the soda, and it will shoot up in the air 10 to 12 feet. It is just a fountain. It is the most amazing thing. It's something I like to do in here every 2 or 3 months for the kids because it is just a jaw-dropping wow. Coke and Mentos, that's all it takes to get your child interested in science. That's something they're going to come back to school the next day, and when the teacher says, what did you do last night? We made a fountain out of Coke and Mentos. It's exciting for them. So experiment with your variables in it. Lots of fun. So let's experiment. We're going to get to this. How are we doing on time? Oh, time goes by so fast. Okay. So let's experiment. So before beginning, there's some stuff you want to keep in mind. Science experiments should be supervised for both the safety and continued questioning. So things like even manipulatives for your young child. Playing in styrofoam is fun. If you go away, guess what's going to happen? Into the mouth. So you want to be there watching with them all the time. You want to be supervising. It's also a good chance to ask questions. Well, these pinto beans are really slippery, and why do you think they're so slippery? I don't know, it looks like there's some kind of coating on them. You know, there's something on the outside. Maybe we could take some of these pinto beans and put them in water. You know what, let's take these pinto beans and put them in soil and see what happens. Now, a week or two later, you got a plant that came out of a sensory project. So it's always keep asking those questions to keep the learning going. Never use chemicals or substances you are not familiar with. I have to point the finger at myself sometimes at home. So I'm like, what would happen if I mix this and this? Maybe this is a pop. That didn't work. Okay. So make sure you consult reputable internet sites for appropriate materials. You can go to places like Perpetual Preschool. You can go to sites like that have science experiments on there that have been tested by teachers. It's safe. It's something that you can use. So proper safety equipment should be used by both you and your child when needed. So we're going to do an experiment tonight with the balloon. You can have safety glasses for your child on there just in case the balloon pops. The better thing is to say, let's stand a few feet away, you know, while we do this. A balloon pops in your face, it's not going to be a big deal. It's baking soda, might sting for a little bit, but it's not going to hurt you. For them, a balloon popping in their face can actually be something pretty traumatic. So you want to make sure you think common sense when you're doing these projects. And that's the last one. Use common sense. If it seems too dangerous, it is. That's it. Hey, here's a vat of boiling oil. Let's drop something in it. That seems dangerous. Yeah, that's dangerous. Let's not do that. Okay. So let's just use common sense when we get to that. All right. Let's get to the fun stuff. I'm going to go through a few experiments for you guys tonight that you can do at home. Some of those contained right here in the bags that you can take with you. Let's talk about the volcano. Now that is one of the big ones because it's something that you can start from age 2 and work your way up. So the basic things that you need for volcano are baking soda and vinegar, the old standbys, a can of Play-Doh. So take the Play-Doh out of the can, use the Play-Doh, right here, bring art in, use the Play-Doh to make snakes, long snakes. You can wrap those snakes around the volcano and around the cup, increasing sizes to make it look like a volcano. It's a lot of fun. Great motor skill, fine motor skill for them, so you can involve all that in. Pour a few tablespoons of baking soda in, and then you get to control the amount of vinegar you want to use to make the eruption. Slowly pour it in, it will fizzle out over the sides, and now you got a whole slew of questions for your young ones when that happens. How did that happen? What's a volcano? Is there a volcano where we live? What made it erupt? Were there volcanoes back where dinosaurs lived? Now your child starts asking questions. What kind of dinosaurs live by volcanoes? Did the volcanoes hurt the dinosaurs? Did the dinosaurs stay away from the volcanoes? I don't know. Let's go see. Let's learn together. So, continued questioning on that. All right, so here's what we're going to do together. Inflate a balloon without your breath. So, what I'm going to use here is a cylinder. And I need to get into that closet for just a second. Sorry about that. I'm just going to grab something really quick. Water bottles. So, water bottles are both one of the greatest inventions and one of the worst things for our ecosystem out there. There are literally piles and piles and piles of water bottles that are waiting to get squished down, recycled, reused. They pile up. Think about how many of you guys go through a week. I go through a lot of them. But here's a chance to not only teach a lesson about recycling, but also a science lesson at the same time. So what we're going to do here, you guys are a few feet away, you're okay. So I won't make you move. So what we're going to do is we are going to make a balloon blow up without using our breath. So what we're going to do, I'm going to tell you guys how to do this the STEAM way. So this is what child is going to be in our class. How do you think we can blow up a balloon without using our breath? I don't know. All right, what could we use? Do you think we could use something else to blow it up? I've got some baking soda and vinegar here. Do you think if we mix those together, it'd blow? I don't know. Well, there's 2 questions and an answer. Don't stop asking questions. Well, look, I have one of these here. What's this? I don't know. I was playing with that in the kitchen center. I don't know what it is. This is called a funnel. You know what a funnel is? Allows you to pour stuff into something without making a big mess. So I'm going to use a funnel right here. Okay. So, all right. This is vinegar. Have you ever smelled vinegar before? No, I never smelled vinegar. You want to smell it? Oh, gross. Why does it smell like that? Oh, question turned back on you. So we can talk about how vinegar is made. All right, so we're going to pour some vinegar here in the bottle. Now, I'm using a big smart water bottle. You can use a regular normal size bottle and use less in here. Now, I'm going to take a balloon here, like this. I'm going to put the funnel inside. Have you ever seen Mom or Dad blow up a balloon before? Yeah, I've seen them blow up a balloon. How do they blow up a balloon? They put it in their mouth and they blow really hard and it gets really big. All right, I don't want to blow up the balloon in my mouth today. I think I'm going to put some baking soda in here and see if the baking soda will work. What's baking soda? Well, baking soda is something that you use to bake with, but you can use it for all kinds of different things. You can use it to clean with. Did your mommy and daddy ever use baking soda to clean with? Oh, no, I've never seen them use that, but my mommy keeps one in the refrigerator. Oh, that's good. That's one you guys can use to take smells out of your refrigerator. So baking soda has a lot of uses. All right, so I'm going to tap it down in there, make sure it's in the balloon, just like that. Okay. And I'm going to take my balloon on the top, like this. All right. Wait a second, Mr. Ryan, you didn't put the baking soda in there. Yeah, because we're not ready yet. What's going to happen when we drop the baking soda inside? I don't know. All right, well, let's find out. I'm going to hold the balloon like this, and I'm going to drop the baking soda. What's happening? What's happening to the balloon? It's blowing up. Are we using our breath to blow it up? No, no, it's blowing up inside. What's causing it to blow up? It's bubbling. Yeah, those bubbles are making gas, and gas is what's being used to blow this up. So we blew a balloon without ever using our mouths. What do you think about that? A science experiment done with tons and tons of questions. Afterwards, you got a balloon to look at. But the gases inside is not going to last very long with the breath. So, and also, just a tip for you guys, balloons can be scary for kids, so popping them, pull it, and cut it at the top. Instantly will take all the air out of it. You won't have to go through the whole pop. It'll be an easy thing for you to do. So there's an experiment done with a lot of questions. Do you guys have any questions so far about that? Everything's kind of explanatory, but something fun that you can do at home. Do I got time for one more? I do have time for one more. All right. This is an easy one. This is what I like to call swimming raisins. Now this is one of those that works sometimes, and it's one of those that doesn't work sometimes. So it's going to be up to you guys to keep it going until it works. Beakers. Beakers, graduated cylinders, however you want to call it. They are a staple of science. They're used for everything from mixing chemicals to measuring grain. So they're important. They can also be expensive. You can find some cheap, $1 or $2. If you want really nice ones, they're expensive. We don't want really nice ones. We're scientists, we want to get dirty. So, this is just a smart water bottle. Cut off at the top. Use a ruler, you make a graduated cylinder with inches on there. You made a science tool for your child, didn't cost you a dime. Cheap. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some normal raisins here. So again, I would start asking questions. All right, when you eat your raisins, do you ever think about where raisins come from? I don't know where raisins come from. Where do they come from? What's on the outside of the raisin when you eat it? Oh, it looks like there's wax on the outside of it. Good, what happens if we pour some of them in like this? Do they do anything when we pour some in here? No, they don't do anything. All right, we'll put some in there like that. Oh, look at this. This is soda. We're not supposed to drink soda, are we? Not a soda. No, that's not good for our teeth. No, but it's good for science. So we're going to use this right here. We're going to open it up. Hey, listen to the sound. You hear the sound? What makes that sound on there? Hey, is that kind of like the gas that we used in our balloon experiment? You think there's gas inside of here too? Yeah? Carbonation. You ever heard the word carbonation? That's when things get all bubbly inside, like this. So we're going to pour some of this inside. Like this. Up to the top. Okay. So, you have to let it set for a little bit, but it's already starting to work at the bottom. In theory, what happens is the bubbles form around that waxy coating of the raisin, causing it to swim up and down inside of it. So it's hard to see. Maybe pour a little bit in here. As you can see them going up and down already inside of there. A very cheap project you can do at home. Whoops. And it also can be done, changing the variables on it, by mixing water, vinegar, baking soda together, and putting popcorn kernels in it. Popcorn kernels will do the same thing. And actually, they'll actually clump together like a group, form bubbles underneath, and they'll rise as a group up and down in there. So it's pretty neat. So you can see some of them are moving around. There's some floating up to the top right now on the bottom. Now you can start asking your questions again. So why do the bubbles move the raisins? Wouldn't all those bubbles on a raisin make it heavier? What's inside of a bubble? Is that air inside of a bubble? So air is light. Air is like in a balloon, and a balloon's light. So we can make those raisins move up and down. So there's an experiment for you right there. Another one we won't do here, but pepper. Everybody's got pepper at home. Get a shallow bowl, fill it with water, pour pepper on it until there's a nice layer of pepper floating on the top. Then get a bar of soap and just stick it right in and see what happens. The soap will repel the pepper to the sides. Most amazing thing. You can start asking questions, simple ones like, is the pepper scared? Is it scared of the soap? Why did it run away from the soap? Starts to get them thinking, starts to get the wheels turning, and it's going to keep their attention. I will tell you, in this class, we set up centers. Technology over here, dramatic play over there, art here, science. When I say, okay guys, it's time to pick your center, everybody gets up and comes straight to science over here. Because they want to see that experiment. They want to have fun with it. That's something that will definitely keep their attention and engage them in it. All of this stuff is very cheap. This is a fun one. Little containers like this. You can use small Tupperware containers. These are old film canisters. Make a sensory exercise for science out of them. Put a cotton ball inside and start putting things in like pickle juice, vinegar, cinnamon, cloves. We used this in our class today and the kids loved it. So you take off this top. Now here's the thing with the younger ones. Their first inclination is to go and blow it everywhere, just like I did. So you got to teach them out. Lightly sniffing it in because you don't want them to suck cloves up their nose. All right? So you got to teach them about lightly sniffing it in. You know, sniff like that. Oh, that one smells good. Oh, that one smells terrible. Let's get a piece of paper down and write which ones you like and which ones you don't like. Now you're keeping data, and you're showing them how to do that. Little things. It's little things that really get those wheels turning and get them interested in science. Now when they get to the next grade, you can bump it up a notch. When they start getting into grade school, you can start using different chemicals. Again, make sure they're approved by websites and that they're safe for your child. But you're making that learning grow, and you're fostering that in your child. Now, guess what happens when they're 18? And now it's time to choose a career. And they've gotten A's in areas like science. They're very interested in engineering. They're going to get those jobs. They're not going to have to compete for them because they're out there, and there are so many of them. Really well-paying jobs. I do a podcast every week because I'm a geek with my friend. And one of our big things on our podcast is to talk about technology. And my friend is a software developer who does a show with me. And he brings stuff that just amazes me. Do you guys realize we printed our first 3D car last week?
Yeah.
Full-size car. I don't want to test drive it until they get the bugs worked out in. But that's amazing. So now, think of that in the setting of a classroom. When the teacher talks about Australia, Aborigines used to use boomerangs to hunt kangaroos. What's a boomerang? Well, I could draw one here on the board. It's kind of like this, and it's kind of like a triangle. I could show you one on the pad. I go walk over to the 3D printer and make one. Now we get to take this outside, out to the playground, and throw it around and see what it's like to be an Aborigine for a day. It's here now. This isn't 10 years in the future. The 3D printers are here now. They've gone down from $3,000 to $4,000 now to $200, where you can get small 3D printers for your home. All right, $200 ones are very advanced. You're going to be making tiny little things out of them. But the technology is here, and it's coming faster and faster and faster. Google has announced this year they're going to start driving their first driverless car, a test drive. So they're going to have a driver sitting in the back who is going to be able to take over the car if it doesn't work. So one day you're going to look over and there's not going to be a driver in that car. All right? He's going to be sitting in the back doing math or doing homework or doing business. So it's coming and it's coming quick. We don't want our kids to be behind. We want Americans to be the leader. That's not something jingoistic. It's not something to glorify. We just want to be in the forefront helping. We want America to be known as the country that's helping. So if we can make our children find solutions, that's great. That's great. What's more satisfying than that? To know your little one is going to make the world a better place. Far too often we say, I worry about the future of this country. But we can use things like this to say, I'm excited for the future of this country. We're seeing things turn around. We're seeing our kids take a love into these disciplines that are going to be used to help others that need our help. That's what it's all about. Thank you guys for coming. Our time is already done. You guys have been really great. Thank you for the outpouring of support for this. Please come up and pick a bag for your family. If we run out, let me know, and I'll get some more for you guys. Thank you very much.